Let's get back to our guests. Robert and Leslie, again, thank you so much for giving us some time this evening to talk about these subjects.
Hey, Pat, thank you so much for having us aboard. Hey, what's your bumper music there? Sounds
familiar.
Yeah, sounds
that is Henry Mancini's Experiment in Terror.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Actually, that version that you hear, we've used for the past 5 years. When I was a young kid, just to digress a little bit, when I was a young kid, I hail from the great town of Chicago. And when I was a young kid growing up, every Saturday night at 10 o'clock, WGN used to play a show called Creature Features. And they used to use that as their opening theme before they go into a movie. And Marty McNeely, who is a longtime announcer who just passed away recently at WGN. He was at WGN, I think, for 40-some years. He does that overlay of that program, of that recording. So we found that fit just perfect for what we're doing.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's for sure.
But that's Henry Mancini, and we get more questions. Everyone's like, "What is that? I've heard that before." And, yeah, but that's it. That's the WGN. We'll give them a little credit out of Chicago. That's their version of it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Well, Leslie was telling you about the real creature, like the lycandroid creature.
Yes.
And what we've done is we've woven it into a post-apocalyptic kind of scenario where there are two groups of people, one in Arizona and another near the Georgia Guidestones, and there's a love story there of people that were going to get together, but because of the collapse of society, weren't able to. And the frustration and the experiences of the internment camps, the chipping of people, the breakdown of all of the norms of society and how the survival mechanisms kick in, what the military's doing. There's a theme that runs through it that includes UFOs and extraterrestrials as well as a secret government. So it's quite a story mixed in with the real creature being a super soldier that was actually developed in Dulce. And I'm sure you're aware of some of the information that's come out about Dulce and the experimentation and stuff that's going on there. So it's kind of an offshoot of that. So when people wonder, what to read or what to look at, I think the ebook's about $3.50 or something on Amazon. It's kind of the latest. It's the latest book that we've written together, Leslie, and it's a good read. And then in the back of the book is all the information on the real creature that Leslie pulled together as well, including our desire to put together an expedition and actually go out and try to,
we'll either photograph it for evidence or kill one or get some actual proof.
Yeah.
Because I know some of these have been killed in the past.
Right. Do you believe that? Let me ask you guys this: do you believe that this creature, this is not just your common everyday wolf that's hungry? Do you believe that it's an intelligent creature, or it comes from a different dimension, but has sub-intelligence? Is it a worker? I mean, like a lot of people talk about the alien greys, the little greys being really kind of an autonomous little robot type of worker. What do you think this guy is or gal is?
Well, they do seem to be extremely intelligent, kind of like how, Bigfoot is extremely intelligent, and it has, super strong powers of, vision, hearing, smell, things like that.
Speed.
Extremely fast, extremely strong. They could easily, I know of one case where one ripped to pieces like a 12-foot tall Bigfoot.
Wow.
They're extremely powerful. You don't have a chance against one of these if it decides to kill you. You're dead. You are ripped to shreds. They love to kill.
They're 7 to 8 feet tall. How many pounds, Leslie?
Oh, probably about, well, it varies because some of them are a very slim body type that's maybe 150, 200 pounds. And then you've got the big muscle-bound type bodybuilder looking, and they could be like 300, 400 pounds. But they're just, even the small ones are very strong, and they're just so fast they can run on all 4 feet or run on 2 legs and back and forth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the book fictionalizes the creature and makes it an extremely deadly and dangerous and intelligent super soldier developed by the secret government with extraterrestrial, I wouldn't call it DNA as much as extraterrestrial componentry mixed with the werewolf type DNA.
And back at the time the book was written, I mean, we were seriously considering that was a strong possibility of how the creature came to be. And even the things that the creature does in the book, the real creature can actually do things like that. And that's no exaggeration. But there's still a possibility that there have been these lichen creatures cloned at Dulce. There have been things that I've heard and things that I know about dead ones that have been found that I still haven't ruled out the fact that some of these may be artificially created on this planet in our own dimension, other than the ones that also come from another dimension.
Interesting.
And if so, you just wonder why. But, you know, we have those Nazi scientists, and also I've heard there may be a possibility of Japanese or Chinese scientists that were doing things in human experimentation like the Nazis were, that also may be involved in cloning or, you know, making more of these creatures in this dimension, and for the possible purpose of, like, super soldiers. So that's why we call them super soldiers. They may be cloning them for a purpose like that.
To change the subject just a little bit while I've got you both on the line, you know, we were talking, Robert, we were talking a little bit about the German technology and you know, and your study of the Germans and the Nazis. You know, the Nazi bell, some of these pictures that we see, you know, some people think that Kecksburg, that might have been a Nazi bell. Do you believe that Hitler and his entourage, or maybe even pre-Hitler, do you believe that that the Germans or the Nazis were coercing or involved with extraterrestrials to, you know, to give them technology to maybe get, you know, one up on everybody else?
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, the research that we've been doing, the first contacts appear, and there probably were much earlier contacts around 1928. And by the time you get into the mid-30s, the technology was very advanced. And the contact between the extraterrestrial intelligence and what a person also has to consider is that there is or was, some people would say was, but other people would say is, a civilization that exists on this planet that is, they would call us the hybrids. You know, they have a level of technology that's existed here for literally hundreds of thousands of years, and they chose to interact as well. Now, one of the fascinating things is that there probably were German bases on the moon and on Mars as early as the mid-60s. And so the Brotherhood of the Bell and Farrell's research on that and the information about that whole technology, including the motive power and, you know, the way the different systems work to create a bell-type device, was one approach that we used, but it wasn't the only approach. There were also their Hannibus and their other type of disc type craft, which Admiral Byrd talked about, and there was a project called High Jump. Are you familiar with Project High Jump?
No, enlighten me a little bit.
High Jump was an expedition that was formed supposedly as a geographical study of Antarctica and led by Admiral Byrd, but in reality was a huge military task force that went down to Antarctica because the Germans began to claim Antarctica. They overflew Antarctica and dropped spears and flags throughout that continent in the 30s. And so after the end of the Second World War, there had been so many submarines and so many ships and so many German expatriates that went to South America, definitely Argentina, because Perón was financed and brought into power by German money and German power. And so what happened is that the United States government sent this expedition down there with aircraft carriers, fighter planes, and all of the different military equipment under the guise of being a geographical study. And it was attacked and destroyed, literally destroyed in a matter of a couple of days, and then the task force returned. And the comments were that Byrd made was that in the future, the United States would have to be prepared to fight against an enemy that had craft that could fly from one pole to the other in a matter of hours.
Wow.
So, I invite your audience to check out Project High Jump and Paperclip. And both of them just points directly at how advanced the technology really was and what a huge cover-up NASA is and what's really going on in our local solar system. I mean, it's just incredible.
You know, you mentioned, Bob, a little bit when we first started about Antarctica, and what do you think is going on down there? I mean, of course, there's a lot of people that are, they say there's research bases down there because of the cold temperatures. They're doing medical experiments, all kinds of other stuff. What do you think is really going on that all these people, all this money is invested, going to the bottom of the planet, if you will, and building, building these small cities? What do you think is really going on down there?
Okay, I'm going to give you two different viewpoints, okay? Because Leslie and I are investigating the two viewpoints as well. There's one viewpoint that says that the Nazis, knowing far in advance that they would never succeed at winning World War II, began to develop another location for the Fourth Reich as early as the late 1930s, which involved tunneling, the creation of bases, Antarctica, the scouting, the locations, the financial plans, all of those things, and that continued to grow into what's called the New Schwabenland. And that exists, and that down there, there is a secret base. It's much more than just a base. It's an entire civilization with interconnecting tunnels and access into the inner earth, with literally millions of people living there and, living life on a totally different level than we're living here on the surface of the planet. And there are those that say that it's a good thing because there was a decision made to be nonviolent. There was a decision not to destroy the planet, but rather to try to save the planet, and that group and that civilization and that power structure that's there is actually working for the good and the betterment of the planet. Now, that's one viewpoint. Now, there's another viewpoint that says all of that is basically true, but they're not working for the good of the planet. They're working for the enslavement of the planet. And they're part of what we would call Agenda 21, which is the depopulation and the change of the planet to a planet that is more livable by the ET races than by the human species.
Interesting. Very interesting. One of our listeners on the East Coast writes in a question for you guys. Get your take on this. What's your views on alien bases or even our own bases on the moon? And I'll add even Mars into that.
Well, we definitely feel that the bases, are on the other planets. See, because I had the experience where I actually went to a briefing, I was aboard a spacecraft and taken to another planet, and went to that, and I was informed that there were shuttles that come and go from this planet every day, and it's not a big deal. And that was clear back in '71, and I personally had that experience. But in spite of my own experience, there's just so much proof, if a person wants to look for it, that there are bases on the backside of the moon. There's Mars bases, and yeah, definitely there's a secret space program which is called Solar Warden. And one thing people can do, one really good source is a place called the UFO Store. They have tremendous old DVDs and a lot of great information. If a person wants to look into some of that older information that's kind of gotten buried and lost, there's definitely bases on the other planets. But more than that, they're civilized. We're kind of we're the ones that are restrained. We're the ones that are held back, and I think it's purposeful. I don't think we're evolving. I think we're devolving.
What do you with all the research and the filming that you've done and all your time that you put into this for so many years? We talk about disclosure, and like you said, Stephen Bassett. I mean, he goes and he does these different things in Washington. He tries to bring this stuff to light. Do you think in our lifetime we're going to see something? And I ask this question of all my guests. Do you think we're going to see something that is going to just prove to everybody on this world that we're not alone, that there is something bigger, there's a different power out there, and it'll be a turning point for everybody? Do you think we'll see some event happen?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think that it's not going to, I've worked with Stephen, and we provided him with 1,500 DVDs to distribute to the key people to try to get the fast walker information, which had tremendous proofs in it, out. And there's been other people that have done that. And, there's no question that he's able to put pressure on people. And because he's a registered lobbyist, he has the agenda which could bring about information. But the most recent information that's coming out about Hillary is that she was right in the middle of the whole Rockefeller, Lawrence Rockefeller, Bill Clinton, Hillary, and the whole UFO desk flowed through her. So she's very knowledgeable about the UFO situation. And when people like Senator Barry Goldwater couldn't get disclosure, it's very, very difficult to put the pressure on Washington to bring about disclosure. But I think that there will be disclosure as a result of a series of events that will occur as we move forward. And I think it's going to be very serious. It could involve almost a liberation. We call it the Freedom War. I think it's going to take a mass pressure brought about by the citizens of the planet, possibly because of shows like yours and the internet. It could be possible that enough pressure could be brought on that there will be disclosure, because lots of countries have disclosed it. It's only the United States, basically, and Canada. And Paul Hellyer, I spent lunch an afternoon with him, and he came to the Fast Walker premiere in Toronto and endorsed the film. I mean, he's telling everybody there is an ET presence, and there is, the UFOs are real. They're as real as airplanes, So there is disclosure.
Well, I totally agree with that. It's just it seems like the average, the average everyday person. Maybe that's a bad term to use, but I think you'd both agree, and most will agree. So many people in this world, they get up in the morning, the alarm goes off, they go to their job, they figure that their job will never end, they figure that the paycheck will always be there, they go home, they eat dinner, they watch news, they make the car payment, they make the mortgage payment, and their life revolves around that, and they don't tend to see the outside world. And people like that, which I think make up, sadly, the majority of the United States, that's the majority of the major cities, are people that just they're caught up in the day-to-day mundane society. When you talk to them about these subjects we talk about, until there's one of those flying saucers in the Smithsonian Air Museum, it's going to be hard to get them to believe. That's what I seem to buck up against all the time.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm really not quite so optimistic anymore about disclosure, because to me, actually, disclosure has occurred that, there are ETs here, many species, probably well over 100, who were here possibly before humans, who may have even created humans, who have been coming here since then, like Charles Hall has talked about the tall whites. So the information is out there from a number of credible, high-level sources, but it seems to stop at a certain point. Like Jimmy Carter could not get any additional information under threat of death, and Hillary Clinton knew about this, and she was photographed with that UFO, ET, or whatever book when she was walking with Lawrence Rockefeller, but yet when Clinton was president, nothing came out. They said something will come out under Obama, nothing came out. So I think it basically, at that level, it just stops, and there won't be anything coming out from a higher level, because basically you've got the military-industrial complex of corporate people and the Rothschild-type bankers that are running this planet, and they don't want that to come out, and I don't think they will let it come out. And the only way it would come out and all this stuff to stop is if those people were arrested and put where they need to be.
And you're absolutely right, Pat. People are so driven by just the demands of society. How do I get my kids to college?
Survival.
How do I pay the bills? What happens? My car broke down. It's can I pay the electric bill? And the cost of insurance is going up. It's terrible, because not only are we barraged, with the demands on our daily lives that we don't have time, we also have information overload. I mean, I don't know about you, but there's so much information flowing now that you have to digest it a day with your cell phones and your email and everything else. Instead of life getting simpler, it seems to us it's getting more complex and more difficult to deal with.
And also, I mean, everybody sees those chemtrails up there. Most people know how bad they are for us. They know about the fluoride in the water, how bad that is. They know about how bad GMO foods are. And we have a Supreme Court justice who was an attorney for Monsanto, yet all this goes on. The average person has no clue what to do about it, because Congress is obviously all paid off. A lot of people in the Supreme Court are obviously paid off. They're by the corporate sponsors. So it's like, who do you go to for help? It's like they just throw up their hands like, I have no idea what to do here. No idea. Nobody does. So that's why I have serious concerns that anything will ever change unless there's a massive arrest.
Well, and that's what kind of gets me back to the whole thing is as far as seeing something in our lifetime that nobody can dispute.
Well, that happened, though. If you go back and you look at, like, Don Ware, the fellow we just profiled on our latest DVD, he actually saw the UFOs over Washington, right over the Capitol. And for 2 Sundays in a row, the UFOs appeared over the White House, and there's pictures in it. It's been on the cover of Life magazine. They had a demonstration clear back, I think it was 52. I'd have to check the date. Yeah, but I mean, we've had the demonstrations, but It's the preoccupation. It's we're being kept so busy and so distracted. But I happen to feel that we're being led into a major confrontation in life in the United States that's going to shake up everybody's life.
Going back to serfdom.
Yeah, and it's going to shake up everybody's life. And, you know, a lot of the concerns that we have, this fellow Harry Cooper, who we interviewed to do the Hitler DVD, he has a lot of people that he's in contact. He has an organization called Shark Hunters, and they're all the old submariners and German sub-commanders, and plus military U.S. and Air Force, and they're feeding information to the membership about what the Russians and the Chinese are doing in terms of their military buildup. And, you know, we're really being positioned for two things. One, which is a major economic collapse because it breaks, you know, the new money systems, and the American dollar is no longer going to be the reserve currency. And we're also being positioned to go into, I believe, at least a limited war, and possibly not limited. And life is going to change in the United States for everybody, including ourselves, and we're concerned about that.
Well, and you know, and I really, I mean, one thing that I've said many times, again, people, when they get into that mode that most people are in, where they go to work and they don't tend to look around them. I think that when some of these things happen, if we see a financial collapse, which anybody that tells you it can't happen, I totally disagree with, because I think when it happens, and maybe you'll agree, maybe you won't, it'll happen so quick, people will be standing there with their hand in their pocket, and they won't even know it hit until a few days later, when a gallon of milk is, you know, $16 a gallon, or you can't get that gallon of milk anymore. I think it'll happen so quick, people won't even know it happened, and they'll be standing there in a daze.
You're absolutely right. And, you know, you're very fortunate, and maybe it's not just fortune, maybe it's just intelligence, that you're in an area of the United States where people have been told to prepare for years, you know, for generations. The LDS Church has told people to prepare for a time when you're going to need your food supplies, when you're going to need, you know, your friends and your family. And most Americans are not at that point. And the prepper thing is good, you know, but just imagine having to survive out here, and we're all faced with that problem, and it's major. And I think you're right. I think it's going to happen. It's going to happen so fast. And I think we could literally be months away. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's years and years away.
It could be any time, really.
Yeah.
Well, and I hope it doesn't even happen at all, for the sake of my grandkids and kids, and you know, I hope it's something that can be avoided. But again, I think people need to wake up, and they at least need to acknowledge some of these things, and be aware of some of these things. And like you said, the planet. I don't, you know, and there's so many discussions and debates you can have about it, but it's just about people treating each other right, stopping a lot of the wars for nothing more than the greed of money, is what in most cases it really comes down to, and somebody making a buck on it.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, because war is the most profitable institution there is. And in the book Lycandroids, that's why we called it Lycandroids, Super Soldiers, and the Freedom War, because it shows what life is like once that happens, when that breakdown occurs, and when the person is standing there confronted and the ATM doesn't work, and you don't have a bank account anymore, and you can't go buy any gasoline, and there's no electricity.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Fringe Radio. Our guests tonight, Robert D. Miles and Leslie Mitt. Before I go on, I do want to do a quick shout out to one of our listeners who's been on the program a couple of times. Carol Carl is a listener from California that is always there for us listening. We've had her on the program. She's been involved in the music scene and the acting scene. She did a film years ago with Robert Redford, and she's just an all-around great person. She does the daily UFO news update on the Inception Radio Network, and she's working on some other projects over there. So, Carol, thank you for always being there, and it's an honor to have you on the show and interview. And again, happy birthday to you from all of us here at K-Talk and Fringe Radio. Anyway, Robert, back to what we were talking about.
Yeah, talking about war, you're really spot on when you talk about that's the major thing, It used to be, Pat, they figured it took 30 years to prepare a population to go to war against another country. And that include building the infrastructure, getting the armament. And the banks, of course, they finance both sides. And that's been so proven, like in World War II, Ford built motors for the German tanks, and one of the parts for the Messerschmitts was supplied by American companies. And, what's going to happen, and I think the public needs to be aware that this shift where they're talking about taking the American dollar out of being the reserve currency, and, they're actually talking about attacking the central banks, the Federal Reserve System, which, of course, that's another whole story. But I think the American public needs to be prepared for this massive change that's going to come about as a result of a new financial system. And but I don't think we should be deluded, because I think they're still planning on funding the wars and making it all work in favor of the bankers, and,
right.
and the banking families, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, and the whole subject of the people that are behind the Illuminati and the New World Order, which I feel has its roots in the ancient civilization side of it. Because you ask, like, when did it start? Was there real technology back in the 40s and the 50s, and that kind of thing? So just basically, these are our opinions and the results of years of research. So we just thank you for the opportunity to talk to you and talk to your audience.
Well, and and the thing is, Bob and Leslie, the way I look at the way I look at it, some people some people listen to the program, and we bring on guests of all types. We bring on people to talk about ufology, to talk about paranormal research, bring on guests to talk about serial killers. So many different subjects. And what I think it comes down to is films like you guys make and the research that you make. You believe in what you believe in. You put it out there. You can throw it out there. Some people will, it's just the fact of life, and I'm sure you know this. Some people will agree with you. Some people will be open-minded. Some people say, hey, a bunch of kooks on the radio right now. But that's okay, because I think it still gets people thinking about things. We've often discussed with many guests the topic of religion and religion and our history. We take things for, I shouldn't say for granted, but things are passed down generation through generation, even beliefs in our families. And now people are starting to question some of those beliefs. For so many years, you just listened to whoever, whether it was your mom, your dad, your parents, whoever, your family. And now people are saying, well, I don't know if I agree with that so much anymore, even when it comes in terms to our existence and so many of these other topics.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And there is a consciousness shift. And hopefully that shift will occur, because in my briefing, going clear back to when I was briefed back in the 70s, the hope was that society, once there was a communication network in place where it could reach virtually everybody on the planet, that the society could change the philosophy that we're not all enemies. We don't need to hate each other. We don't need to kill each other. We could have a paradise here on this planet. And there's plenty of places to farm. There's amazing technology available. You're in IT. You know how fast the technology is evolving and changing. What a wonderful opportunity for all of us and for our children and our grandchildren, if only humankind would change its point of view. And we're dependent on shows like yours to make that happen.
We try the best we can. What other projects are you guys working on? What other things do you have on the burner?
Well, right now we have a couple of films that are going into re-release that'll be coming out, and we've gathered a tremendous amount of information that deals with the Antarctic situation. With I would have to call it this whole cover-up that we've been discussing. This whole philosophical premise that we're evolving instead of devolving. We're looking at doing a film that brings it all out in the open and kind of ties it together with all the little pieces and the proofs. And it would be similar to Fast Walkers, only it would be much more advanced and hopefully technologically even better. So that's in the works. We're kind of outlining it, and we've got a tremendous amount of information. We've got a lot of good stock footage. We've got a lot of good pictures. We got a lot of good people that want to help. But, you know, the bottom line is most people don't want to pay for anything anymore. They want to get it for free. Book sales have fallen across the board. I've got so many friends that write books, and so does Leslie, and do videos and programs, that it's very difficult to produce anymore because you put out the money and, you know, it basically gets pirated.
Right.
Or, you know, it's very difficult. So it's a real challenge. So we're basically asking ourselves, is it worth it? Should we go to all the work and the effort and the expense to do another one?
Yeah.
And that's where we're at on it.
Well, but if it's your passion, it's like doing this radio program. You know, we've done this for 5 years. I did it 6 nights a week, plus worked a regular job on top of it, and it was starting to kill me.
Oh, boy.
Getting home at 2:30. I used to do midnight to 2 a.m. and get home and you know, get to bed and then get up at 7:30 and get in the shower and get out the door. And as much as I loved doing it, as much as I loved having and the audience that we brought in at that time of night was so interesting. But you know, but sometimes life takes over, and you got to live life. We've only got a couple minutes left. We did get a caller that called in on our break and wanted to comment, see if you had any comments on the Philadelphia experiment at all.
Yeah, well, Leslie studied that as well, and I certainly think it took place. And Leslie, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it really happened too. That Beeler, gosh, I forgot his first name. I don't know about him. I met him one time and I heard him tell his story. You know, one of the guys that was on the ship, and it seemed okay in the beginning. And after a while, it was almost like he went into like this trance and like he was just reciting something he'd been brainwashed with. It was the strangest thing to watch it. But Al Beeler, I think, was his name. But still, I really do believe it actually occurred.
Well, so much of the stuff that Tesla came up with, you know, and I believe he was involved in that Philadelphia experience, or at least his technology was. So much of the stuff that Tesla did, you know, was so advanced. And I think that the world, unfortunately, was robbed, you know, by Edison, because Tesla had designs of making things more affordable, and as you know, what we call open source.
Right.
Yeah, but you know, basically, right now it's anyone that has information would love to contact us. The links are on the website, timestreampictures.com. Check things out. We'd love to hear from you. And we thank you for this opportunity, Pat.
Oh, Robert, yeah, thank you both. And let's stay in touch, because I'd like to get you back on again, maybe in the fall. There's so many subjects, so much more we can talk about, and so many more things. Again, it's been an honor having you both. Thank you for giving up time. I know, Leslie, you're busy, but glad we got you on the line with us. And a lot of fun, and definitely it's about educating, having a little bit of fun, but learning something too.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, hey, great luck on your prepper thing there. It's going to happen.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, and great to your sponsors on your show for sponsoring your show. And again, this is what we need. This is what the world needs.
Okay, Robert, Leslie, have a great night. Be safe, folks, and take care.
You bet. Take care.
Thank you for being there, as always. Bye-bye.